I wanted to say a few words about our organization. So we are the Union of European Federalists. We are the Hungarian group, and we think that a more united Europe could better serve the interests of the member states. And that's why we are very much interested in the topic of the democratic consultation, because that brings closer citizens to the EU institutions and citizens closer basically to the topic of the European Union, and that we can feel that we belong together, and then our opinions count. And that's why we wanted to invite Mr Thibault, who is the chargé d'affaires at the moment of the French embassy, if I'm right. And now with this, I would like to give the word to Mr Thibault.
Thanks a lot, Esther. Hello everybody, so sorry for being 30 seconds late. Thanks to all of you to take some of your time to be here with us to discuss about what should be a matter to all of us, the future of the European Union. I won't have a very long speech. My idea just to present you briefly what was the idea behind this citizens' consultation on the future of the EU. And it will just last 10 minutes, and after really I just wanted to be as interactive as possible, so just I'm here also to hear your thoughts on the ideas, or so questions or any comments or critiques, about the way the EU is being handled. So as Esther say, I'm a French diplomat. French, as my last name doesn't really mean it. My last name is Lespagnol, so it's a bit confusing, but I'm a Spanish spy in the French diplomacy, but it's our secret, so the French don't know it. So
nobody will know.
I trust you on this one. So basically, it was really almost a year ago, on September 7th, 2017, my president, Emmanuel Macron, delivered a speech in Athens, exactly on the spot where in the antiquities there used to be the agora, and where the Athenians were actually deliberating and voting and discussing about democracy. And because it was really the birthplace of democracy, of European democracy as we know it, he made this speech trying to call for some European-wide citizens' consultation, the future of the EU. And his main idea was to say, okay, over the last 2-3 decades, we always had these European leaders in Brussels, negotiating overnight behind closed doors, then reaching a compromise, good or bad, and then after organizing some referendum in all the EU member states. So the citizens were not really involved, they were just presented with like 300 pages text to vote on it. And the idea is try to take a bottom-up approach. First we should try to consult the citizens, about what really matters for them in the EU, what should the EU do, or maybe what should the EU not do. It's possible as well, but really to have this bottom-up approach and to ask them. And that was the first idea, really to ask them first, and then the feedback of this consultation should be presented to the European leaders, and then their responsibility to move things forward in the direction wanted by the citizens. The other idea was try to have it in all member states at the same time, because consultation is not a new idea. Many EU countries are organizing periodically some consultation regarding some specific EU issues, but the idea was try to do it all at the same time, all together, so that we can really compare between countries, and we can try to have a picture of what do EU citizens think in 2018. So that was the idea. And the third idea was try to say we should not try to mix it with the European Parliament elections, because of course every 5 years all citizens can vote for their MEPs that they send to Brussels and Strasbourg. But as you know it, I don't know how is it in your countries, but most of the time actually the European campaign, the country is all about national issues. Sometimes it's also more some midterm elections, so we more vote against the current government. That's really on EU issues, and it happens in my country all the time this way. I'm trying to have this consultation a year before the European Parliament election. You try to disconnect it, and so the political parties can maybe try to raise things on the EU level, not just about power politics, how to get into power the next 3 years and so on. That's why the calendar is a bit short. We decided to launch the consultations in April, and the idea is try to have everything done by October, November, so that we can do some reporting for the European leaders at the European Council in December and to present them, okay, here is a reality. And the idea is try to say, okay, maybe migration is the main concern for European citizens, maybe, or maybe not. Maybe there's some concern about climate issues, maybe they are concerned about health, maybe they have concern, about Brexit, or maybe some other Brexits happening in the EU. So the idea is really to have a very wide range of questions. And so there was this idea, from my president, but now it became, an EU project. So there were several negotiations in Brussels, and all EU member states decided to join, except for the UK. As we know, they are planning to exit the EU, but a country like Hungary, is also planning to join. And the idea was try to have a kind of a two-layer consultations. The first one was try to have an online formulaire, an online form, questionnaires with some questions about the EU. And the idea was not to try, again, to have a kind of a bottom-up approach. So actually it was a panel of citizens from all of the EU, from different countries, different gender, different ages, different jobs, and they come together and really decided to define what should be the questions. And so they come up with a set of 20 questions that are now online, and the European Commission has posted online this form. So if you just Google your citizen consultation, the future of Europe, you will directly go to the website of the European Commission, and there you can find the questionnaire. So in all the EU official languages, it takes 8 minutes to do. And really it's interesting because first it's some open questions, It's not just yes or no question. You really are asked to say, okay, what should the EU be all about? What should be the top priority for the next year for the EU? Or do you think in terms of food industry we have too much harmonization or not enough harmonization? Do you think like in the social security we have gone too far within the EU or not? Do you think in like the fight against terrorism or the fight against illegal migration we've gone too far or not far enough? So it's really open questions. The idea is not try to say we need more Europe. No, it's what kind of Europe we need. And maybe in some parts, in some areas, we have been having too much Europe. So let's say it, let's put it on the table. There is really no taboos. And so really I encourage you, after Sziget is over, or even during Sziget, just Google and you can fill it on your smartphone without any problems. The second thing is that's more the layer, so that we have the same for a questionnaire for all of the 500 million EU citizens, and they can just fill it in there within their own languages, and then the European Commission will report it. And then the second layer, which is most important, like all the EU member states have committed to organize some events in their countries to try to have something of a more interactive dialogue, organize roundtables or discussion town hall meetings like we have having right now actually. And it should not be, of course the government should help, but it should not just belong to the government, all NGOs, like Euro Association could join, we can imagine some, farmers associations, some universities, some schools, some municipalities. The idea is try to have all the civil society to join, again, to try to make it a bottom-up approach and not to have this usual, EU talk that we have that always happen, either in university or in big cities, and you have only, like the EU enthusiast who joins, and the one, the guy who is in his farm, who actually gets lots of money from the EU agricultural policy, but might have, a Eurosceptic discourse, then he never attends this kind of events. So that's why we have been trying to do, at least in France, in my country, it's really to get out in the streets, to get out in the village, to try to organize all these different talks about, what kind of EU want, what does really matter to the persons. And probably what matters to most of us, of course there is peace, but maybe it's not what actually the EU leaders are, are discussing or bargaining in Brussels. Maybe something more concrete, about what kind of food we want to have, about what kind of peace we want to have. Okay, who should have the power in the EU? Should it be the Parliament? Should it be the Council? Should it be the Commission? So it's really an open discussions. And just to give you a few figures on in France, so we started the consultation on April 17th. Actually, it was in a rather small town, it was a 10,000 inhabitants town in the eastern part of France, and our President Emmanuel Macron went and answered all the questions the local citizen would have. And ever since we have 480 events who have been either already organized or will be organized by the end of October, and by very different, some are from the government, from the parliament, some are from some NGOs. Sometimes we have some big companies who are actually organizing this. We also have political parties who decided to organize these events. And the government just set up a committee to have a kind of a label, whenever there is an event which is meant to be part of this consultation, the government is just checking that it will be an open event, open to everybody, and that there will be some reporting, because what matters also to know what in all these events, what will be the feedback, what will be the main concerns expressed by the European citizens. So that's the whole idea. And so thanks to this reporting system, okay, then the French government will be able to send to Brussels, say, okay, in France we organize this consultation, we have so many events, we have so many people joining in, and okay, the main concerns for the French citizens, about the future of Europe is this, and this. And I know in many other countries of Europe it started. So of course we need also some more communication on it. Of course summer is not helping, but in France some association organize something, on the seaside, really to go and get the people where they are relaxed, where some time to think about the EU. And what we turn really important is like to start to reflect really about the EU we want, and start to be a proactive process. It's not just because once in a while there is this referendum being organized and then you are just asked yes or no and you think yeah, but if this guy asks me yes, it's to support him, but I don't like him, so I will say no, even so actually I do think the answer should be yes. We have the problem in France. So that was more or less the idea, the concept behind the citizens consultation. So it's a true European project now. I really encourage all of you to at least go online and to fill in the form, and and back in your countries, just try to look around, see there are some events organized, and there are no events are organized, so just organize it, with your friends, with your association, with your municipality, or if you're a member of a political party or trade union, just do it because it really matters. And this time we will do our utmost that for the EU leaders to really take it into account. If they don't take it into account, you have a second chance. That's the European Parliament election next year in May, and here really, I really urge you to go and vote. It doesn't matter what you vote, but that's important, for our voice to be heard. Because we are seeing some tension. We're having the Brexit. We have some countries who say yes, the single market is very nice, but we don't want anything else beyond the single market. We don't want a common asylum system. We don't want a common defense policy, and so on. So it's really important for you to just let your voice being heard, to get committed. So I'm really open to have these discussions between you together, between me and also between Esther, that again, so I just want to thank for the initiative. I think it's really great.
If there is immediate question, then I give the floor. Otherwise, I would have one question. You have one question.
How many people in France already filled the questionnaire?
So how many people have already filled the questionnaire in France?
So far...
Or Europe-wide, I don't know whether you have the figure.
I will confess, it's the European Commission that has the data. So far, the result is not thrilling because we had 39,000 French Europeans filling in the questionnaire, and some more 15,001 who have started the questionnaire but haven't completed the whole process. Out of this, 25% of the person who fills the questionnaire for France. Because our government is heavily engaged, and of course based on different member states, the government might be, more or less engaged in the process. So far the top three is actually French citizens, then German citizens, and then Hungarian citizens. And interestingly, about Hungary, what you see, the government decided to join. So far we haven't seen any events, but one of the political party, which actually is the Jobbik party, which is, it's not clear now whether it's a far-right party or a center party, but at least, they made lots of advertising for this campaign, and probably most of a good share of the Hungarian who fill in the questionnaire actually from this party. But I think it also shows that in Hungary, you can have the official speech, but the Hungarians remain deeply committed to the EU. Of course, now we can argue what kind of EU we want, but they're really committed to the EU project. So far, more and more people should be filling in this questionnaire, and we hope, when everybody comes back from holidays, and the media start to speak with the EU again, it will kick off on the more personal events for the consultation.
I wanted to ask you that we talked with other civil organizations about this project because the Hungarian government is not very enthusiastic about organizing programs, as you just mentioned. And what advice would you give us if we wanted to kind of get together with civil organizations and try to organize some events concerning the this democratic consultation? What would you advise us in general a little bit? What we should pay attention to?
Well, I think already this event you organize is great because you try to go and look for the persons where they are. So if they're half of Europe is in Sziget Island, so let's go to Sziget, Otherwise, if you just organize an event in your usual, like office, and you just, send a post on Facebook and wait for people to come, it will be hard. But but if you get, on the weekly market in a small town in Hungary, or if you go to another festival, or if you arrive like 2 hours in front of the stadium for a beautiful board game, you have people who are already here, they have always like 1 hour or 2 hours to lose, and they have some time to speak of Europe. So I think it's good because this way you manage to go and get some people who usually think, yeah, okay, this EU thing, that's all nice, but they don't understand anything, or they don't give a damn about my opinion, so on. So it's really try to use some events that are already organized, whatever the event, and then to try to go there and to engage a discussion with them. And you can prepare, a few provocative questions just to ask, what does it mean for them for the EU? Do they think they would be better off without the EU or not? Maybe also to try to work on their personal life. Have they been studying abroad, or maybe not, or have they been working abroad, or maybe they are not working abroad, but their kids have been working abroad, and so on, to start on very concrete issues. I think it's a first step that can be helpful. And I think what's interesting also to work with the local authorities, with the mayor of your town, the Polgármester, or with the head of the regional council, because usually sometimes at the local level things are a bit less politicized, and then maybe they can, give you some help, with advertising, or give you, a room for free for some time, and I think that could be a good thing. And also, I'm a diplomat, so I already have to be very careful. The feedback we have from the Hungarian government so far, it's of course they had the elections. Then it took some months, for the government to be reappointed and so on. Then came summer. So hopefully, starting in September, they will organize something. But again, it should not be just waiting for the government to do something. It's about us to try, to grasp the problem and give some feedbacks to our leaders, the one we are being electing.
Anybody questions? Maybe from Alliance Europa. We have some people here from Alliance Europa. You want to come forward? Maybe you can come to the micro and then maybe... Yeah. Thanks for coming anyway.
So thank you very much. So first of all, for a discussion, I think for dialogue, okay. Alright, for dialogue, I think it's good to know who is actually here. So, who is from Hungary? Okay. Who's from Italy? Who's from France? Okay. Belgium? The others? I see a group there, I don't know where they... Spain. España, vale. Yeah, la otra posibilidad. Okay, so I think, what do you think, what is important for you, I think? I think it would be nice to think how to organize these kind of discussions in a way where we actually can feel of common ownership of this discussion, this European project. I think European project, and actually I have two hats because I work also for the institutions, but also I'm a civil society activist, so I have basically two hats. Here I work with the civil society part of things. I think what matters is very much what is our vision for our society, right? So if you think that you want to have a society which respects the environment, a society where you have the ability to travel and to work freely. So sometimes you can do things at the local level. You can work in your neighborhood. We just planted some trees in my neighborhood just the last weekend. So how you can improve your quality of life, very concrete actions. But sometimes, you know, if you want to, for instance, and neighbors told me, you know, there's too much pollution in our neighborhood, you know, we should change that. Then I cannot work only at the neighborhood level. I have to work at the city level at least, or maybe at the regional level. But then there are issues also that you have to tackle at higher level, you know. Think of climate change, think of migration, think of security, you know, all these issues actually need to be dealt with at a higher level. And that's actually why Europe is important. Europe is not just important because it's a nice flag and we have nice offices. It's actually because we can together deal with issues which are really only be dealt with at the European level, sometimes even global level, because even now, you know, with China and the US and so on, Russia, we realize that some challenges need to be dealt with really at even the global level. So I think the key message for me is like Europe is really our place, it's our Europe, because really it's our space where we can really work, study, live, decide for our future. You know, we talk about civil rights, we talk about freedom of movement, we talk about quality of life. I lived in China for a short while. I realized that in China, I didn't have the right to actually go for jogging, because if I go for jogging, actually my health would have been worse off after the jogging before. So these are these little examples that these rights of expression, you know, we have in our neighborhood, we have Russia, we have Turkey, situation in which the freedom of speech is challenged, and not only actually in our neighborhood. So it's important that we actually stand up for our own future and our own rights, because it takes very little to lose lots of these rights. Huh? Look at Brexit. Any Brits on the audience? Yeah. I study myself in the UK, so I really feel sorry for my friends in the UK who actually didn't want to leave. But basically, with one referendum, you're losing so much. Hopefully, it still can be, you know, still can be changed. Still, we can maybe join again very soon. We do everything we can, but still. So participation is it's important, because by taking decision or by not taking decision, but not going to the streets when you should go to the streets, you actually may lose a lot of your own rights. So I think maybe we can reflect together now. Tomorrow we also have an event of this kind, maybe to discuss it also in groups and see what also you think we can have a different format. But really, what do you want for your society? What's your vision? And then let's see how Europe, how, you know, our communities at regional level, our local communities can actually help achieving that objectives. So I think we have to reverse a bit politics, and we have to rethink as these institutions as means to achieve objectives. And the objectives is our generation that has to develop them. Yeah? Thank you.
Actually, just a comment that you thought, no, it's okay, you can talk, because it's more comfortable for you. But it's a little bit also alarming that you are telling, I had no idea that Jobbik is promoting this consultation, because it's most probably a special, like a part of the society which thinks a bit differently about Europe than maybe us or maybe other parts of the society. So I think that that's why it's important to participate in this consultation, because if we don't participate, it's a little bit like the elections, that those people who go will decide for us, and especially if those people are more extreme in thinking, then they can decide for us in a different way than we would have wished for. So it's that makes me think that it's even more important for us to organize events and to kind of motivate and inspire people to participate in this consultation. Because I don't think I want to live in a Europe that is defined by the Jobbik people, and that's only a Hungarian, a Hungarian local thing. You want to come forward to that the other hear you?
Hi. So hello. I guess as I'm standing up here, I also introduce myself. I'm with Volt. We're a new pan-European political party that hopes to run in the European elections in 2019 on a pan-European program on a common agenda. And I also work with Alliance Europa, so I also have hats. And I wanted to maybe give two small questions / comments. One is connected to what you just said about Jobbik. I think we've noticed recently that the far right has started changing the way it works. kind of cleaned itself up a little bit. Let's say it's been a process of a few years, and have started engaging in the mainstream in a way that wasn't the case before. So, for example, at the European Youth event in Strasbourg a few months ago, we saw all these young people in the European Parliament plenary, and a big chunk of them being Front National, Jobbik, the far right. And there were these young people sitting there in the European Parliament where their actual far right parties were sitting, and waving Front National flags inside the European Parliament. It was very strange to see it, but they were actually, dressed in very much the same fashionable way as any other young person, speaking like any other young person, but giving a far right vision of Europe, which I agree is is quite scary to see. So I think, seeing as Jobbik is doing this, our response needs to be, as not on an institutional level, but on an individual and a political level. How do we engage in this and really give an answer that defeats them in the debate? I think that's something that we need to think about. And I think this comes back to a comment that you made that I want to maybe edit a little bit. You said that people shouldn't organize these things in their office. I think they really should organize it in their office, and really organize it in their school and their neighborhood, invite people to your house, or do it anywhere you can, because I think the part of the disconnect that we have with politics nowadays is a lot of people say, that's not for me, or I go to work every day, what do I care about politics, that's just people on the TV or people on the radio. But I think we need to develop a new consciousness that if we don't do politics ourselves, politics gets done to us by other people. And so it's up to each one of us to kind of develop this new inclusive political culture. So I think wherever we are and however we do it, it's always useful to do. So that was kind of two common questions.
Yeah, the second one, excellent idea. Yeah, my idea was more, okay, don't expect the people to come to your office, but having something with your co-worker, or with your co-students, or with your family, that's definitely a good idea. Yes, so we're having this trend first. The political landscape, it's blurring. It used to be left-right, for decades, centuries. Now clearly it's different. My president, nobody had heard about him 3 years ago. Sorry, he had no political parties whatsoever, and managed to be elected. We're having some countries, where the far-right party are a bit more center, where the right party actually implementing some far-right policies. And you have some countries, actually the far left and the far right can really rally under the same platform, criticizing the EU and so on. So it's really, now it's hard, it's even harder than before just to put the people into a box, because you could say it's a debate between the pro-European and the anti-European, but there are many ways to be against the EU and there are many ways to be for the EU, And I can deeply respect some people who are really believers in EU ideas, but who want on some issues some more national sovereignties, it's fine with me. And sometimes probably we need to spend some time with this debate to try to really go down and deep into the subject to really know what we do want, and just to say I'm pro-European, I'm anti-European, or I'm just Eurosceptics in some industry on a few policies, that really matters. Okay, one of it could be migration, because everybody speaks about migration, but again, migration seems a small issue to compare it to climate change. You have climate as well, you have trade also, you have also what kind of relationship we want to have with the rest of the world, whether it's for our border, whether it's about trade and so on. And yeah, I think it needs some time to discuss. And regarding this push, the next year election for the European Parliament, it looks like there will be a strong push from parties, well, not necessarily far right, because sometimes it's even hard to define them, like the movement like 5 stars in Italy, it's hard to see where you could put them on the political maps. But somehow, and then there is this myth about maybe all the far right party can try to unite. So far it never happened, that's why in Brussels, the European Parliament, you have like 3 Eurosceptics political groups, because those groups, if they agree, they can agree against the EU, but then it's hard for them to agree between themselves, because then you see between Mr. Salvini and Mr. Orban and some other far right leaders, it it's easy to say, yeah, I don't want any immigrants, but when you start concretely to say, okay, should we have a common asylum policy? Could we, we help each other in the fight? Then, okay, everybody wants to do, and we know it's not the nationalists who made the EU, 60 years ago. There are people, of course, they love their country, that's no issue, but they thought, okay, maybe there is a way we can try to solve our problems together. Because from what I understood from the history of our continent, it's for 2,000 years. Either there was one guy stronger than all the other ones, so it was dominating, there was some kind of peace, because one was really so much stronger than the others, and the other kept quiet. Or you didn't have really this balance, and then the main obsessions of our leaders who tried either to invade, the neighbors, or to keep these populations, or to marry, the queens, and to be power politics. And we've been living in a war, more or less, most of the two millenniums. And the EU is not perfect, but it's the only system we've imagined to try to live peacefully. And okay, it doesn't really matter whether we argue a lot in Brussels. At EU, we argue, we negotiate. And our main obsession is not just, to invade the other. So we must very be careful when we try, to say, okay, yeah, to have too much critical discourse about the EU. Of course, there are things to improve the EU, but we should never really forget that the main basement and foundation for the EU is peace. And so far, we haven't found another system than the European Union, the European project, to have actually live in peace. And and we've seen from the last centuries, each war was always worse than the previous one. So we should remain careful. I see we have some friends from the European Commission joining us.
Welcome. We're talking about the democratic consultation, and I'm actually referring to your question or to your comment on Jobbik. My fear is a little bit in the Hungarian context, that if these consultations are based on party organization, then it will be a little bit one-sided, because I think that's the strength of the civil organizations or these non-partisan organizations, associations, that they are not, they are open, much more open to a broader public in a way, and so the opinions will be obviously more diverse, or they have to be more diverse. So it's not going to be very, very one-sided in this sense. So that's why I think that we have a big task in Hungary, because we have a very fragmented opposition also, and then the governing party is not so enthusiastic about organizing it. So basically, in order to give more publicity or more reaching out to this, then we have to do much more, I think. So we have a big task and a big challenge to do. I don't know if István wants to comment on this, or what the Europa Bond can maybe do, or I don't know whether you have something.
I'm part of the audience.
You're part of the audience. Oh, right. Okay, so any other questions we have? We have a long wire, so you can get it.
I hear a lot of positive thoughts and ideas, or how to let the European people become closer to Brussels, to the things that we decide as a European Union. And I don't want to sound too negative, but are just working, or are just normal people living their daily life capable, do you think, of really seeing the bigger picture and the understand the possibilities and the way things can go when they decide on something, when they give advice on your on the website, or think with politic board. I don't want to sound too negative, but it's something I see also after the question of what is your idea of the European Union, is can we see the bigger picture and what it's good for us? And I ask it myself too, because I don't have a vision of what Europe should be. I have lots of ideas, but I don't have a vision. And so that's when I see that by myself, and I ask myself, can I give you advice on climate change or well, big issues? So I think I can do that. So is it possible, you think, that we as the whole European Union, every citizen, can do that?
It's clearly the main challenge, you know. When first I heard the idea of President Macron say the citizens consultation, I thought, wow, that's a great idea, but how to implement it, you know, and how to make it work. And I think it means, okay, you need to be very careful and just frame the debate, the topics in a way people can relate it to, you know. If you ask a global thing, okay, do you think there should be like a reform of the common agricultural policy? I mean, maybe even me, I wouldn't be able to answer. But if you ask the guy, okay, are you ready to pay a little bit more if you have a product that is better for the environment? Or do you think the farmers should get some subsidy from the EU? And okay, the farmer getting from subsidy from the EU, it's actually money from our pocket, you know, it's from the taxpayer. So are you ready to give part of your taxes to the farmer so that it takes better care of the environment, so that first you have some better products, but at least the way it's producing means the environment is healthier? I think that's the kind of question everybody can have an opinion on it. And for some of them, you know, can think, no, okay, I can't afford, you know, paying more to have some good products, so I don't care. Or another question can be, you know, do you want in your village to have some foreigners coming in, you know, because in their country they are actually there is some war? Or let's rephrase it another way, you know, okay, in my country we have a very strong economy, you know, there is no unemployment, and to keep growing, you know, we need to have some extra workforce. And then, okay, the person can tell you, yeah, okay, I'm ready to have some foreigners, they have a job immediately, and they will integrate, there won't be any problem. Or they think, no, I don't think we should get any foreigners, or maybe I like this kind of foreigners, but this is the kind of foreigner I don't like. Or maybe, yeah, I think maybe there should be more women, you know, on the job market, or there may be more disabled persons on the job market. There's kind of some priorities, you know, you can try to have. And also regarding the different products, you know, okay, is it important for you to have some products who are actually manufactured in the EU respecting some standards, or for you the only criteria is actually the price criteria, and it doesn't matter whether you have some products, you know, coming from other countries where actually they use, you know, more oil or more pollution, or, you know, they have maybe have kids working or something. But it's a very tricky thing, because it needs to take some time, and you need to phrase the question in some way that does relate to the daily life. And once you engage this, you know, with the daily life, then okay, you can try little by little to see the bigger picture. But it will take some time, you know. It's clearly this kind of thing you cannot do, you know, just by clicking on a form. So it's useful to be able to compare European-wide, but that's what's really important in such a debate. And here, it's not really a debate we have on the future of Europe, you know, it's more of a meta-debate, a debate, you know, on the need to have a debate on the future of Europe. And the idea, you know, to just to sow a few ideas, and after for you, you know, when you go back to your city, to your country, or to your friends, or a company, university, to try, you know, to engage in this debate.
Just one thing came to my mind, referring to your question, that in Hungary there is a strange propaganda sometimes against the EU, but what we can see after all, that the majority of Hungarians are still pro-EU. Somehow they can see the bigger picture, or somehow they don't buy this, you know, by what the government is telling them on one hand. And I think that the other aspect can be to bring the EU in the topic, like to bring the EU in what we talk about, because that's also a little bit the problem, that we talk about migration but we don't talk about the EU, you know, like I think also in another lecture I heard actually yesterday, that there are so many topics where we can agree within the EU, and it's basically the overwhelming majority of the topics we agree, but there are some few issues where we have some debate. And maybe we can focus by this consultation also on the things that we like about the EU, then that we are maybe grateful for that we have the EU. So that would be my thought on this. So any other questions?
this seems to be a slightly extended conversation, so I won't feel the need to make this a short question, but I'll try. I'm a New Zealander with 3 Hungarian daughters. I live in the UK, I've lived there for 20 years. And I say this as somebody who one of my relatives died in the last war. The response of the French European government was to ban New Zealand products from being sold into Europe. I note the bollocks to Brexit sign on your shirt. And my question to you is quite gentle, really. Do you think the problem, and actually I wrestled hard with the question of should we leave the European Union and Britain or should we stay? And my decision came down based on simple facts. The European Union has a parliament that is not able to propose, amend or repeal legislation, which means that it fundamentally lacks democracy. It has what appears to me a corporatist, lobbyist-led, elitist, Platoist approach to democracy, where those of the elite, those who believe in the rule of the powerful, the rule of the corporates, the rule of those who are in the already privileged, should rule over those who are not so elite. And I just wonder, actually, to bring it down, is the fundamental problem of Europe, the fundamental problem, the reason that so many people support Jobbik, so many people support Salvini, so many people support Marine Le Pen? I abhor racism, but is the reason so many people are supporting it is simply that the European Union has no democracy, and that is the fundamental problem, that it is the rule of the elite rather than the rule of the people.
Thanks. Well, it's really a debate, because clearly, I mean, we've built the EU, and the only parallel we have, it's more or less how democracy was built in the nation states. And of course the EU, because it's something unheard before, and just learning by doing and always inviting a new compromise, it doesn't look like the traditional, system we have. And probably we are at this space, like either we have been too far or we haven't been far enough. And there is indeed this gap between the amount of competencies we actually been have more say from the national parliament. That's also an issue which is on the table. Whether so we could have some more system of direct democracy. Now there are these citizens initiatives, so once you reach, I think, 1 million signatures in different countries, then okay, the EU Commission has to put forward a proposal on the table. So it's a way to try to improve the way it is, but probably the EU will never really work as a nation state is working, because the EU is not meant to replace the nation state. I mean, maybe okay, some could have the federalist dream, to organize it in a true federation. But the more we arrive, we are making some progress. The EU is definitely more democratic than 10 years ago, or 20 years ago, or even 50 years ago. When it started, which was really something that was no vote whatsoever in any founding member states. So we are moving forward, but I do understand to some point, share, your kind of, I wouldn't call it frustration, but the fact, we don't always see the feelings and the connection between, the citizens and the national level and the EU level, and the idea is, how we can try to fix it. Is it to fix it going forward, or maybe just to stop, and reflect for a while, or maybe we should go backwards, and bring back some competencies to the national level. And to me, I think it's fine, but at least we should try to keep it as a collective games, because we know we are small nation states now, and the issues we are facing as humankind is actually, huge, and I doubt we can, solve it at the national level or just at the local level. Some can, others cannot, and we need these cooperative games. And we see that the multilateralism, because the crisis we have in the EU is also the crisis we have at the global level, with the UN, with the negotiation on climate change and so on. And you need to be willing to go there. And there is a temptation, just, get rid of it, scrap it, and to build something better. Maybe it could work, but I think it's jeopardizing, and we should try to use what we have, probably improve it. I mean, if there was no problem, we wouldn't be here discussing, of course. And just the option to say, okay, now let's get rid of it, or let's get out and maybe build something else a bit risky. And I do think there is some way to improve the EU. I haven't given up on this, but I do understand.
Sorry, just one sentence to this. From obviously you know the Hungarian situation. You said you have three Hungarian daughters. Being a Hungarian national, we have a lot of trust in the EU, even if it might seem an elitist organization. But the basic values, we are really how to say, when we 14 years ago entered the EU, it was very important that we comply with all the democratic conditions, rule of law, everything. And
that's the basis now.
yeah, I know, but okay, well, we still would like to have more democracy, also on a national level. But I think this integration helps us maybe to kind of get back to that, like in a way. I'm sorry, I didn't.
I think it's really good to hear your perspective and to have the perspective that you brought into the discussion. Because I think a lot of the times we have these discussions in echo chambers, and people with very different opinions don't normally engage with each other these days. But I just wanted to bring in some facts about what you said. In fact, the European Parliament does propose and adapt and amend. As someone who works in the European Parliament, amends and adopts all legislation that comes from the European level. Yes, it does. As does the Council. And the European Parliament, although in the traditional sense of proposing legislation, doesn't propose in the same way, everything that the European Commission drafts is part of a continuing dialogue with both the Council and the Parliament, and it gets proposed as part of a very long-term dialogue. So I think you would need to check what actually happens in the process, and you will find that it is actually a lot more democratic than you think. Secondly, in terms of the elitism, as someone who's worked in Brussels, has worked in the Parliament, and has worked in EU affairs, I've worked with the European Association of History Teachers, I've worked with the Trade Union Confederation, I've worked with anti-homelessness organizations, I worked with anti-racism organizations. So this idea that only the elites rule in Brussels is complete fiction. And in fact, these associations that would have much less power in the well, I think the idea, the discussion of what the elite is a very interesting discussion, but all I'm saying to you is that all these diverse groups do have a voice in Brussels, they do come to Brussels, they do talk to Brussels, and they have much more power actually affecting the European level than they often have at national level. If you speak to any British trade unionist, they will tell you that the European Union and the influence of trade unions at the European level protected them through many years of Thatcher and Tory rule. You will hear that. Yes, because and have someone who has shown local councillors from the northwest of England around Brussels. No, but the power circulates, it goes up and down. But I think all I'm saying here is that the facts are slightly different from the representation you gave, and these things actually do matter in the discussion.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments from any of you? You want to react? No? No? You want?
I just want to hear maybe why you came here.
Yeah, why you came here. Anybody would like to tell why it was interesting, this little consultation? Anybody wants to give a short, brief?
No.
Of course, I was mostly interested by the topic. Okay, now that I'm already sitting so well. because I mean, since I'm actually quite supporting the idea of federal Europe, of course, I'm very interested about, for example, how like basically in fact the consultation is going. So basically, of course, I'm really interested. This is why I'm here.
Anybody? Just give a short answer. Can you please pass?
Well, I work in my city in the government there, or I work for the party. I really.
Sorry, where are you from?
I'm from the Netherlands.
Ah, right.
With the Christian Democratic Party there, and I really why I was here, why I came here, is that it interests me to hear other opinions, other ways of working with democracy and seeing democracy. It sharpens the mind, so that's why I came here.
Okay, and sorry, anybody else? Yeah, we still have maybe 5 minutes or something like that. So you want to have a closing, maybe? Yeah.
I don't think it's a kind of debate you can close, but I think clearly we need all of you and all of your friends, all your family, and this issue does matter, because I mean, if you don't have the debate and if you don't speak up your mind, you know, other people, whether it's the elite or some other person who have an agenda, and they will make sure that their voice is heard. So it's important for us to get committed. First, I mean, the most efficient is to vote, on a local level, national level, at the EU level, and your vote does matter, because politicians do take decisions. So that's very important. I think there is a value of the debate. It's interesting to always not just read, your favorite newspaper, your favorite website, but to try to once in a while, see the other angle, just before to understand this perspective, and also to try to understand it here. It's also part of our job as a diplomat. I'm here, of course, to protect, to defend the interests of my countries and my fellow compatriots, but mostly I'm here actually to understand, to understand what is the position of the Hungarian government, why is this position so, why the Hungarian government has been elected, is the position being supported, and try to explain it to Paris. That's my main job. And it's only once you try to understand, if you understand why there was a Brexit, why the majority of the people voted for Brexit, maybe if they were revoting, maybe the result would change, but probably it would only be a very slight margin, so it would not necessarily be more legitimate than the previous referendum. But it's very important to understand. It's only by understanding the facts, and also to really be sure that the other person has a very valuable opinion as well, that you can try to understand and you can try to convince, or maybe not to convince 100%, but to find those 5-10% where you can have common ground and that keep the society together. We can still, move forward. So what we do as diplomats, with other EU countries, either in Brussels or here, and to try not to do it at the political level or the diplomatic level, but also to try to engage with civil societies. Also, it's a work of the trade unions. It was very interesting to see right now there is this Ryanair, strike, and it seems to be a big thing to see that there are actually several trade unions in different countries who decide to get organized and strike at the same time. And interesting, even so, we are supposed to be, some professional strike in France. The French pilot of Ryanair is not striking, and that's interesting. But you see, like. Might be, but you see that beyond the talks we have in Brussels, the interaction we start to have in the EU, because it's the EU, but because of the forces of the markets, of the flux of persons, that the EU integration is something in progress, and it does create some realities, sometimes some issues, sometimes some benefits, and we need to have the proper framework, to regulate this and to make sure it will not just beneficial to the elite, small or just to one country or one groups. So it's important to have this debate, to engage, and then, for the matter, to vote or even to get engaged in politics. And there is many ways to do politics, not always for an election. It's being here, it's doing something for your local community, everything. countries and so on. So we just keep committed. That would be my main message. And thanks a lot for attending. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much to all the participants. And I think it's active participation which is the most important. So you are the perfect examples that you came here to talk about it. And thanks, and we will keep on talking on this. And thank you, and enjoy Sziget.